comment.
Guess I'll be the first to go. I had one.
Slobodan, you have to say your name and
Name and
address.
address.
Absolutely. My name is Slobodan Trendic. I live in Ocean Pines. I'm a new full-time resident. As of July, my wife died. I apologize, first of all, for being somewhat behind on a lot of these topics because a lot of this is new to me. But I noticed quite an energized discussion on the topic of kitchen that took place recently, especially after reading the local newspaper. I began to realize that there's a lot of difference of opinion on what to do. Some of it is related to the equipment, but what I would like to share with you is really what I personally have focused on that struck my attention, and that's really the whole notion of having two kitchens. Now, I'm not an expert in the hospitality industry, and I never ran a professional kitchen. But I did spend some time on the web this weekend because I'm this kind of person, kind of dive into the situation. I do a lot of research, I analyze, and I was particularly interested how some well-known industry players handle the whole issue of catering small or large crowds, especially the establishment that not only focus on a regular clientele but also on banquet type business. And, I found a lot of interesting information. I'll be happy to share. This is not meant to do so. But what struck me the most is really not the cost of equipment that one certainly can envision very quickly to basically set up our kitchens. But it's the ongoing operational challenge that one face to manage kitchens, especially once I read and discovered that labor is the largest component of recurring cost managing any kitchen. It becomes sort of a question of how do you staff? If you have one kitchen downstairs, you have another one upstairs that functions only when you have a banquet. So it could be closed maybe days, times maybe several weeks. So then, just restarting the kitchen, sanitizing the equipment, and then staffing it for the actual event. Like you said, I read a lot, and I found it very interesting. So I really wanted to kind of, just come by and hear more about this. I'm not doubting that some of you have already thought of this, or they discussed it, and have a way of figuring out how to, in particular, handle the operational and logistical aspect, stocking, staffing, inventory, et cetera, et cetera. That's basically what I wanted to bring up, and I'm very eager to hear what others have to say or think about the subject. And hopefully I'll leave more informed and more educated on the subject. So thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to address the board and the management of the association and our residents and media that might be here.
Yeah.
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. So, as the board's aware, I merged the board to go new equipment in kitchen restaurant. I think Slobodan brings up a point. You will recall that when Boise built the yacht club, originally it had a kitchen in it. A later board of directors, I don't know how long later, decided they needed two kitchens, but the place operated, I don't know about volume or whatever, but I think some might argue the place was busier when there were 4,000 homes in Ocean Pines than it is, say, 8,000 homes in Ocean Pines. Again, like Slobodan, I'm not an expert in this, but if I believe, for example, Figures, I think most of us would agree, does a hell of a lot more business than Ocean Pines Yacht does forever. They have catering over there. They do a lot of cooking. I believe they only have a single kitchen. They have two kitchens.
One kitchen on the main floor, and they have a kitchen down the basement.
In the basement.
That's the full operation.
Okay. Are they separated in terms of?
That's okay.
That's all right. Man, just.
I understand. I can just tell you personal experience. He's my client.
You aren't being put right. But that's on,
But you are following the rules.
if I might follow up on your comments, do they use them separately for catering and normal use? Or if the one is, there's not a catered event, they use? All right, but anyway, I don't know how many places in Ocean Pines, in Ocean City, for example, but this may be worth considering. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Robert? Team.
Okay, good morning. The board had asked following our last meeting, have a special meeting to meet with players involved in coming up with not only the kitchen design, but the flow and some of the things that were impacted, why two kitchens, why new, and how we were going to utilize those. So around the room, for those who may not know, Don Smith from Harkins Contracting is here with us today. They're the folks overseeing the entire project. Directly to his left, Kevin Olin. Kevin is the architect, AWB Engineers, that has helped design the project, building, layout of the kitchen, working closely with Rob Brown, Boy Brown. Rob is the professional kitchen designer. The board had asked us to reach out after we had project approved, referendum. The guidance was, let's not just, take our word for it or just working with the architect on it. Let's actually get a professional kitchen designer in. And Rob is that person. So they're all here today to be able to answer any questions or concerns about the kitchens, about the flow of the kitchens, some things that I'll give you just a quick little background. Turn it over to Rob. We started this process several years ago, and for those that don't remember or want to relive it, I'll give you just kind of a quick synopsis. The original conceptual design of the new facility was one kitchen upstairs and a very small kitchen open concept. It was a bar grill type kitchen on the first floor, much more scaled down than where we are today. That concept, those concepts that were drawn up, not drawn up by any professionals sitting at the table here, it was the initial layout of what we thought would be a good option for the community. At that point, we were also looking at a one-story versus two-story. Came back, two stories seemed like the right way to go, but the open concept with the first floor being open and flowing wasn't received as well as we had anticipated. And after months of meetings, public comments, public sessions, it was determined that going to two full kitchens was appropriate. So this is not new. It should not ever be a surprise to anybody. It's a couple years in the making. And that was after public comment, after board input, decided that two full kitchens was the right way to go. We enclosed the first floor. It's called first floor being downstairs. We're going to have an open flow, kind of a covered eating area, and that was rejected. And they said, no, we want it closed in. Many, many reasons that came up during our public comments and during feedback we got. So it's a little surprising to me that we're surprised that we're at two kitchens, because that's exactly what we went through a lot of gyrations to get to that. Now, with that being said, Rob's going to explain a lot about the kitchen design. The two kitchens, or the building itself, is designed to operate independently of one another floor-wise. We can operate one kitchen or the other or both. But there are some design changes from the upstairs and the downstairs, primarily because the upstairs focus is for catering and events. The downstairs is more a la carte, or come up and as you come in, dine. So that's where the concept migrated to, and that's where the final design came out to. Have I misstated that?
No.
You guys? Okay, so that's, sir, there's a chair
There's a
up
seat
front.
over here if you want.
Sir, there's a chair right over here.
Oh, all right.
It's helpful. So that's how we've got to where we are today. The design was finalized, and Now we're at the point where you all had questions and brought in. Yes.
Just a clarification, this was openly discussed with previous boards,
Yes.
the two.
Absolutely.
And
And,
the public.
during many public sessions. So that's why I'm a little surprised it seems new to folks, because, again, we're happy to go back over it, but the fact of the matter is, this design where we are today came after a lot of input from a lot of people to get where we are. So that's kind of history of what's gotten us to where we are right now. Next thing up, for Rob, if you want to, because the kitchen seems to be the big focal point.
Yeah.
Would you like to share any insight?
Let me just start by giving everybody here a little bit of background about who I am, who my firm is, what we do. I was born in the Baltimore area, raised there. Went to the University of Maryland, graduated Smith Business School, and really started in this industry about 30 years ago. Started on the equipment side of the business. There was an equipment company in the Baltimore area called Atlantic Equipment, a big business down here. I took it over as director of sales and built it into a mega company, enough that the owners are retired in Florida. After I spent my time with that company, I was asked by a group of architects. I'd met my partner in another firm. I was asked by a group of architects to move to the consulting side of the business because they felt that we kind of brought an anomaly to the consulting side of the business. A lot of consultants in the industry can draw space, but they really don't understand equipment. That's my forte, is equipment. I understand it, I know it. I can talk to independently about any manufacturer in the industry and probably talk about any independent piece of equipment. So I understand the operations of what makes everything tick. I started my current firm with my partner 18 years ago. And actually, my business down on the Eastern Shore started 18 years ago. I spent the first year driving down here every week because, as you know, this is not the easiest avenue for somebody on the other side of the bridge to break into. But I spent a lot of time coming down here, introducing myself to people, making connections with people. I was very fortunate. And those of you who may know Sean Harmon with Fishtails and the Harmon family, his brother was alive at the time. Sean became my very first client down here. I did the renovation of Fishtails, and actually I just did another renovation last year. Fortunately for me, the following year, Sean became president of the Restaurant Association out here. And that kind of opened a lot of doors for me because he recommended me to a lot of people. Since that time, I'm very fortunate. I worked with the Harrison Group, did the Hilton Hotel with them, worked with them on the Holiday Inn. I worked with Harbor Watch. I worked with their food and beverage director all the time. We're constantly talking about different venues. I work with Jay Tolson, the Embers, Doc Berger, and I extend all the way up the shore. I mean, we go up to really the Cape May area and as far up as Coney Island. So I've established a very nice niche on the Eastern Shore, but focusing down here, even to the point, and last week Bob and I met with Ed Potaz, who's the head of the health department down here. As Bob found out at that point, I have a very, very good relationship with Ed. We've known each other for a lot of years, not many years as Bob that has, because he was his teacher in school, but we have an excellent relationship. And I can tell you, just for instance, like the Hilton, when I did the Hilton, and I do this with all of my projects, I sit down with them one-on-one. I'm not just mailing in plans, and I review the entire project. I did that last week. I sat there, I submitted my project to them. I met with the field inspector who's going to be doing the physical inspection. I will address one thing that you said about using new equipment versus old. Bob heard these words right from the horse's mouth. When Ed and I were discussing it, and I told him I was going to be coming down to discuss this project, and I'll clean it up for you, but he said, "You're not going to be reusing all that old junk that's in that kitchen, are you?" And I went, "No, our intentions is we're going to be doing it." He says, "I will tell you point blank, if you reuse that junk, I will not approve this project." He says, "I'm going to tell you right now, I will fail the project." So that kind of came through loud and clear to me. And it was reiterated to Bob last week in the meeting, almost one of the first things he said to Bob when we discussed the project. We have a local ventilation company we're working with, a company called AG&G Sheet Metal. They've done many of my projects down here. So that's just to establish. And also, my family does have a residence in Ocean City on Sand Dune Drive. So, even though I'm not in Ocean Pines, I spend a lot of time down here. On a broader sense, projects that we do, we're very big in the country club business. We do country clubs all over North America. We have done, if you're talking about yacht clubs, those of you who know the New York Yacht Club in Manhattan and Newport, Rhode Island, they are the home of the America's Cup. We have redone both of their facilities in the last 2 years. Actually, the last 3 years. We did New York 3 years ago, and we just finished redoing Newport recently. And they fall, the country club and yacht clubs that we do fall more in the wheelhouse of what we're doing here. Besides that, we do, any of you who have been up to the Maryland Live Casino in Arnold, Maryland, Arundel Mills, I designed every food service venue in that facility. All the restaurants, all the bars, warehousing system, everything, down to the design of the draft system built. Working on a huge project in St. Louis for the same group and also the St. Louis Cardinals, and we're going through the same process with them. But the smallest client that I deal with is I have a client who we've just finished the 7th location that was all of 200 square feet. It's a little crate shop. I used to tell the owner if she ever gained weight, she couldn't even work there. The largest project that I've ever done, commercial kitchen, is I have a client that does commissaries, and we've designed an 85,000 square foot kitchen that generates 135,000 meals a day, which is a whole different type of cooking process. But that falls into what I was talking about, is understanding equipment, really looking at providing a client for what their needs are. Bob and I really, originally started this project. We started dialogue years ago. Probably 2-3 years ago. It's very casual dialogue about it. We maintain contact. I participate in the Ocean City Restaurant Show, and I'm a member of the Ocean City Restaurant Association down here. And it really was brought to the forefront, about a year ago or so. And I've spent quite a bit of time in the building, understanding it. The chef and I have had extensive dialogue. Kevin, who's the architect over here with ABW, we've had an extensive relationship over the years. So it all kind of molded together.
I just wanted to say a couple things.
Yes.
When we were having that discussion at the board of the project about bringing someone in kitchen for kitchen specialties, there were 2 reasons why I thought of Savoy Brown. One, there are some kitchen designers here on the shore. However, they work for a kitchen equipment supplier, and therefore you're locked in. If you want them to do work, what they're trying to do is first sell you a bill of goods. He's not tied to anybody, and therefore I knew that it was going to be, you all were going to want to bid out the kitchen equipment. So you needed a designer who was not locked into a certain supplier. Secondly, is banqueting is a very unique form of food service, different from restaurant. And you need someone that knows that. And I knew Rob knew that kind of animal. So that's why when we were looking, that's why I said, so we need to get Rob. So I knew he had the credentials based on 2 big criteria that were part of this project. So.
To continue on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I did have a question, but probably with all this expertise, and it's amazing, and being involved since August of 2012 that I know of, and maybe further back, how did we get to be 550% over budget on the Ansel equipment and 300% over budget on the kitchen equipment?
On the Ansel equipment?
Yeah.
Well, the Ansel equipment, I can tell you, went through a revised code change about a year and a half ago when they upgraded to UL 710. And UL 710, it basically was a national code change, and when that
When did that happen?
about 2 years ago. I
So
couldn't
it
tell you.
happened before you came on board and we priced this kitchen.
It happened before, right? But
Okay.
ventilation, I will tell you, because of the Federal Energy Conservation Act, ventilation in general, nationally, it has been going and is still going through a major change, an entire metamorphic change from when I came into the building. I came into business. You know, it used to be you use galvanized aluminum, which is, you have some of our hoods in there. That under Comar code, you can't even use that in a building anymore. They won't even allow you to grandfather it into a building anymore. Ansel systems have been upgraded, and quite frankly, Ansel systems, I can almost relate it to when my kids were in school, and they would go every year to school and they would get into math. And this year they were teaching them this, and next year they're teaching them that, and then this year they said, oh no, now we're going to go to metric, and then next year they go, forget about metric, we're going to go to this. Well, ventilation and Ansel has kind of gone through the same thing. We got wet systems, dry systems, wet systems, dry, because nobody can seem to make up their mind. And essentially your ventilation number is dictated by the amount of drops in the building and the length of the ductwork. So that is how ventilation and your Ansel in particular is determined. I would tell you there's no set formula, because on every project we do, we bid multiple vendors, and we go to see who we're getting the best bang for the buck on. So, and that's really, it's kind of, you know, unfortunately you're dealing with independent business owners. And, you know, I can tell you up until probably a year ago, when the economy started correcting itself, we hadn't seen anything change for 4 or 5 years, because everybody was paranoid and they weren't increasing prices. Now you're going in the opposite direction. Their business is you know, flourishing with in our industry again, and as business has flourished, we're finding prices are going up. To the point that I will also emphasize one other thing, and Bob and I talked about this yesterday, and I discussed it. We had a conference call a week ago. There will be an across-the-board 7% increase in all of your costs come January 1 if this contract is not issued.
So you're saying this equipment isn't built in a warehouse someplace?
Once we issue a purchase order, then we can lock in a price. But nothing today. It's not like when I ran Atlantic Equipment, we used to stock ranges. The economy today doesn't allow dealerships, unless you are a mega dealership, to stock anything. And even the factories. Vulcan Hart Industries, who the quality is not where it was 20 years ago because of the parent company that they are right now, has a warehouse in Baltimore. There are 2 warehouses, Baltimore and St. Louis. I mean, in Louisville, Kentucky. You used to be able to walk in their warehouse and find 50 ranges. You walk in their warehouse right now, you could have a Frisbee match in there because there's nothing in there. When they place an order, they manufacture.
Oh, let's step back and get time.
Mhm.
I think it's an important question of how we get up where we are, which is part of
Why we're here.
That's why we're here. Number one, I know that the team met with the county numerous times before even the original design of this thing put forward, and a couple of meetings all started. In all of those meetings, no one in the county ever said you can't reuse equipment. Nobody ever said that. So we went ahead, the team went ahead with the concept of being able to possibly reuse something, but we had a whole list of almost 200,000, if I remember that right, of what equipment was going to be able to be reused. And then now it's reiterated, don't use the old equipment, I won't approve the work. So we didn't get that heads up. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Okay. Now, timeline-wise, Bob, I want you to walk through the timeline of, I know when the referendum was passed, when it went out, but there were numbers in there having to do with the kitchen that were in the 4.3, that was based on reusing some of the equipment, which now being built for camp. But beyond that, I'm really trying to do a timestamp on when you got involved with pricing this all out and designing the kitchen. Because when exactly did, I know when you guys came in, but
Yeah,
walk through
he
the
came in after
timeline.
we.
He came in after the
He
award.
came in after we came in.
Okay, so
He wasn't involved
So
until.
walk me through
I
the
was involved
timeline here.
formally, not
Well, that's okay, but I mean, formally, that went out, as Marty is
Based
holding
on
it up.
somebody's drawing.
And that thing had somebody's drawing, had equipment being reused, and that came from somewhere. So that led to the referendum.
Marty, may I see that doc?
Sure.
I just want to look at the kitchen. I can't remember the exact kitchen. But go ahead.
I just want you to walk me through the timeline and walk everybody through that. Because after time, it all kind of piles on top of it as to when people showed up and didn't show up. I remember the board of directors, and I think in the form of Dan and Dave Stevens mostly, pushing hard, and I ended up agreeing with it, that we needed a professional kitchen designer, not trying to design it ourselves. But that was after the referendum was.
Nope, they're in there. They're right in the referendum
Well,
package. His company is
All right,
mentioned.
walk
as a
through the
deed.
timeline as to where we were.
Yeah, there is.
And this leads to answering your question.
Okay.
Thank you.
As we look at this, and Rob can agree with me, this has our initial thoughts of where our kitchen, how our kitchen is going to be laid out. But if you look at where it is now from the referendum, where it is today, a whole lot of changes have occurred. Not the least of which, we were going to reuse some of our equipment, replacing some that's no longer going to be used. So when you're looking at size and shape of each piece of equipment, how the equipment functions, and again, jump in any time, those changes, as we found we couldn't use those materials, we couldn't use those pieces, as we start to get a little deeper into it, and as Rob is now working with our chef, with David, closer with these guys for a final design. If you recall, and everything on here says conceptual. He even says it down at the bottom, conceptual. This was conceptually where we wanted to go with.
Let me just jump in. Also, and I know that internally we've done, I think, 3 complete different designs of build. Because initially, after Kevin brought me on board, the first thing we did is we came down to the building. We did what we call an as-built drawing of the space, and I personally inventoried every piece of equipment in the building. And that inventorying also took into effect whether equipment still complied with NSF, which is National Sanitation Foundation. That is the governing body of my industry, and there's not a piece of equipment even allowed in the building if it doesn't have NSF certification. So the initial design, which was basically, when we did this conceptual, a lot of the equipment we had, we were taking equipment from the first floor kitchen. We were going to be moving it up to the second floor into the banquet hall. We were putting some pieces together so we could make it functionally operate. And then we did that presentation. We went down a path, and at which point Bob said to me at one time, well, we want to really reuse as much used as we could possibly reuse. I had, because I was Daniel at the Ocean City show, I had some indirect conversations with Ed Potaz, who runs the health department down here, and he had kind of informally indicated to me, well, you better start reusing and bringing new equipment in here, because this equipment has been here for many, many, many years. It's not performing properly. And I also said things to Bob and Jerry Vetta, who was involved in it, who unfortunately is out right now, medical issues. We also started discussing energy, because energy usage today is a real key element in any kitchen you're doing. And I can only relate this very, very easily to everybody in this room. If I can when I look at the kitchens, I'm probably utility-wise using, what did you say, 75%, 80% of the overall utilities of a building. Probably a good number.
Yeah.
Probably 75 to 80% of all the mechanical load in that building is going in this kitchen. If I can cut the cost of operation because of new equipment coming in here being $5 a month for one piece of equipment, because now, let's just say a new commercial refrigerator meets the new Energy Star rating, which old refrigeration that you have there currently doesn't meet, that's a fixed cost. That's a fixed I own businesses. That's a fixed operational cost. Those are the hardest dollars for anybody to recover, are your fixed operating expenses. Now multiply that times all the pieces of equipment in here. You may be saving hundreds of dollars a month to the bottom line in the true operating costs of a business.
Well,
So we started having that dialogue also with is bringing equipment in that was going to meet that.
Well, why isn't that cranked into your original numbers then? I mean, it's a very impelling or compelling.
Well, because
case.
we were
Why-
using
why-
used equipment.
But you just said that that is not the best use in terms of efficiency of the cost of running that equipment.
Because if I have a client who says to me, I want you to be purple, and I'm working for a client,
But did
I'm
you
going to
make
be
that
purple.
did you make that recommendation to either this board
Well,
or to
Well, I didn't make it to this board because this is my first contact. But what I will say is this. The Federal Energy Conservation Act came into true force after this was done. And we do a lot of work in Washington, D.C., a lot of work in D.C. So because that was mandated in the District of Columbia, we started looking at all of our projects. I mean, and bringing in things like hoods with energy management system to them. You know, something to bring it in here probably is not cost effective because you're not going to get the payback. But then we started looking at a lot of equipment. Now, unfortunately, our industry, my industry as a whole, is behind the times. They are just now falling in, and things are going into Energy Star for Energy Star certification. So the only pieces that may have been, and we probably were reusing them at that point, in the wheelhouse at that time would have been like reach-in refrigerators. Now, fryers are Energy Star rated. Griddles are Energy Star rated. Ranges are Energy Star rated. Walk-ins are Energy. So what's happening, and you can check Energy Star right now. Go into commercial food service equipment. You'll see there's a major list of blocks of equipment that are going through that process. And unfortunately, because that's about $100,000 cost per manufacturer per item to not only become Energy Star, but also to meet NSF certification, which means they have to be recertified again, that the industry is very slow on catching up. And our industry, and look, I work in it, and I also own a technology company, and it's very frustrating to us because they're not the quickest. It's like if they could still use 386 computers, they would still be using 386 computers. They don't want to be working on an iPad today, where the rest of the world is working.
So basically,
Let me ask one quick-
no, wait, I got to get clear, Marty.
You can get clear.
Yeah. Basically, what you're saying is that the client sets the tone or the direction in which you're going to go. If the client comes to you and says that we need to construct this kitchen both on the first floor and the second floor, and the best or the most economical way that we know of is to utilize existing equipment where we can, you will agree with that and you will determine which equipment can be recycled? Is that what you're telling me?
As long as it meets NSF certification, yes, I will.
Okay, now,
And that was my first drawing that
I
did that.
understand that, but you also indicate that particular standard was not in existence when this particular project was first generated.
I don't even understand your question. You just said
Okay,
to me.
you just said that it's a new standard. Energy Star.
Well, it's not, Energy Star is a new standard. Our industry is just catching up with the rest of the country. Residential equipment has been Energy Star
I
rated for
understand.
years.
I
Commercial is a slower process because it's not only Energy Star, they have to meet NSF certification. In certain cases, it's not only NSF, it's also UL certification or AGA certification. You got to realize we have a lot of governing bodies behind every commercial refrigerator. There's a bunch of bureaucrats, our friends in Washington, that are making our life really nice right now, standing there and saying, okay, we need this, 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 and this. Now you look at a manufacturer. Let's just take that reach-in refrigerator, and to get Energy Star, and NSF. That's a major expense. Now you also, let me complete my thought. Now also roll into the fact that prior to this year, the previous 4 years, our economy was in not only turmoil, was in a state of destruction. We didn't know, quite frankly, I didn't even know if my company was going to survive those 4 years. These manufacturers were all in the same state because nobody was buying. Commercial kitchen's a luxury item, quite frankly. I have clients, with the exception of the government, I have clients that can live with kitchens as you did with Ocean Pines. How old is this kitchen? 30 years old? 40 years old? I mean, it's lived a very long life. It's lived this life expectancy. So, all those factors went into why our industry is just now catching up, and they're saying, okay, we're making money now. Let's put these pieces of equipment through the standardization
Okay,
test.
we had what's in front. The numbers were in there based on reusing equipment, based on design, which the space is still basically the same.
Basically the same, yes.
Now it's being used internally around. But the question is still on the table of the only one I know of that is jumped out at me when I started listening about it was the ventilation. Could not be reused because of equipment that is not coming over. You couldn't bring the old ventilation.
Correct.
All right, so that's one piece of the answer of how did we get from A to B. What I'm trying to do and what we all think we all want to know today is how did we get from A to B? A was reusing equipment. We got a list of stuff that we thought we were going to reuse. You apparently thought we were going to reuse it. You thought we were going to reuse it. We're now not reusing it. So I get the Energy Star. I get all that. And I think
that wasn't Energy Star.
That
was your little health department.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So,
Real quick question. You mentioned that 75% of the energy cost of the building is your appliances in your kitchen.
Ventilation and gas, right.
How much of that do we save going to Energy Star? Give me a wild percentage. 20%? 50%?
If you don't know
No,
for sure.
no, I couldn't give you a dollar, man. I can just tell you. I mean, I could probably get charts that could indicate it, but off the top of my head, it's a significant dollar amount today.
50%?
Well, we're just talking
No,
about.
you're probably talking about it. You're probably talking about a 20%, maybe a 25% cost savings, energy savings.
Yeah, that would be equal to
yeah,
$13,000.
let's not go
May I
there.
ask a
Okay.
question?
That's an important number, but
Mr.
it's
Brown.
13,000.
I heard two things that I think are important. One of them is that you said when you laid out this kitchen, that you had multiple bids from different people to come up with the best equipment based on Energy Star and based on the survey and what we need.
Based on the design that we did.
Okay.
And I'm good. Let me step back one more minute for this. We also, between Bob and Jerry and myself, maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago, Bob said to me, because quite frankly, when we got involved in this, we started designing a kitchen, and when I was speaking to David, who's the chef, we started talking about,
Food and beverage.
as a manager, we started talking about specific equipment. He's on the front line. So he started talking to specific manufacturers, specific equipment. Bob and I and Jerry had a dialogue, and they said two words to me: value engineer. Okay, we all know what the word value engineer is. I hate the term. To me, hey, tell me, make it cheaper. Why don't you just call a spade a spade? Make it cheaper. Don't be politically correct. So we went through a process of value engineering the job. The job that we put on the street is a value engineered job from where David wanted. I will tell you that. So we made some adjustments on our mechanicals that we got over to Kevin's term. So because it's a domino effect. One thing affects another.
Sure.
So we went through that process. As far as the bidding, so we put these bids. Well, let me step back. Jerry, not myself, Jerry put the bids out on the street. They ended up, I think, when I walked into a meeting, maybe it was a month or change ago, and Jerry had gotten back bids from all the dealers that initially it went out, and they only had one dealer that accepted the terms of bid. I was able to get a hold of the bid criteria, and I called Jerry. I said, if you kick this criteria on the street, nobody's going to bid it because you're putting the dealers in an unfair advantage. Essentially, it gave the yacht club the right to cherry pick equipment from dealers. So we could pick one from column A, one from column B. And I said to him, it's not economically feasible for a dealer to do it. The way our industry works is if you buy from a manufacturer, if you buy bulk pieces, you're getting a discount on freight. And freight is extremely expensive. With the exception of like Eagle Manufacturing, who is located in Smyrna, Delaware, we don't have another manufacturer, even, well, Vulcan, Baltimore, but most of Vulcan is just, this is a shell of a company. Most of that is being shipped out of Louisville. So there's an advantage to doing that. Plus, from when we are in construction, I now have to work with Harkins. Okay? Between the two of us, we now need to coordinate this whole project. Think of it this way. What's the old saying? Too many chefs spoil the broth? All of a sudden you got 18 people starting in the same pot. And we're sitting there and saying, okay, we've got a drop dead date that we need to open this building, and now we're trying to coordinate this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy to come on site. He's also got an issue with his electrician doesn't want to work in the field the same day his plumber's working in the field because they step on top of each other, and it becomes a coordination nightmare. So I went to Jerry and I said, what you think is going to work is not working. I said, you want to do it, let's go back. I told him to use the 11400 that my company produces. I said, get it on the street. I spoke to the dealers. We were able to get the dealers to come back in. That brought us down to 6 dealers who ultimately bid the job.
If I can jump in.
Okay.
You mentioned value engineer, just so the board's clear. I didn't say cheap, but I also didn't ask for Cadillac. We didn't ask for top of the line, and we had to talk about this.
We talked about a Chevy.
It was instead of top of the line Cadillac when everything be a little more reasonable with our pricing, and that's where the term came. Just so the board understands, it wasn't that we were trying to cut corners on the building, but you don't have to buy top of line equipment for everything. It just didn't seem like a
Rob,
reasonable
with the
approach.
person who you choose eventually, or whoever is chosen to do the kitchen equipment, they're also involved with the installation and coordinating it with
They
these
get it
gentlemen.
here, they install it, and then they will service it for
Right. Well,
For a
and
certain
let
term,
me get into that because I can probably tell you more of the details of that.
Well,
Okay,
wait,
before we get to that, yeah.
Did you get
Let's
your
not get into
answer?
that.
No, I just,
Yes,
I
they
didn't
will
think-
all be delivered
and
and what's called
Okay.
set in place. Deliver and set in place means they bring the equipment in, it goes into the location where it needs to be. By code, it'll then be turned over to Harkins. Their plumber and electrician have to make final mechanical connections. It's a code requirement. Then the company will come in, we'll do a final setting of the equipment. I will be moving in and out of the site during this time. I will then do my first punch list. I will make sure that the building is prepped and ready for the final inspection. Then I will bring in, it's actually not going to be Ed, it's going to be a young lady by the name of Millie, who's going to be handling the inspections in the field, who we sat down with last week again, and she's a real nice young lady down here, and she will come in and do final approval.
But when you mentioned the price increase of 7% after January 1st, that is an assuming that we get everything ordered in December. When do we have a delivery date? What is our
Let's make it
time
at the
frame?
delivery date. The delivery date
So-
will be set by Harkins.
But in other words, we have time to get it in. I don't want this project delayed. is what I'm
Oh,
saying.
no. All the equipment
We've got
will
our
be,
time frame
all the
is
equipment will
working.
be
Okay.
ordered and staged in the awarding dealer's warehouse.
Okay.
And
Time
so
out.
when they are ready for
Excuse me.
equipment to come, it'll come.
Let's get back to what we came here for, which is A to B. How do we get from A to B? We've got a bunch of numbers. I just want somebody to walk us through. I know there's like $200,000 worth of equipment that we couldn't reuse. At some point, we had a budget in the original 4.3 that is now whatever all the new equipment is. So if you could, just walk us through some of the changes that happened. It may seem obvious to you, but we need to understand, again, how do we get from A to be? How do we get from that design, that brochure, where we are today? And that's, I think, is everybody okay with that? Let's do that. Then we can get into the nuts and bolts of
I
other
can do
stuff.
that fairly simple.
Okay.
Okay.
Please do.
We had multiple meetings at the yacht club. Kevin was involved in them. Initially, Bob was involved in them, and David was involved. So this was after I had done my physical inventory, and that was after the preliminary schematic drawings. We started talking, as I do with all my clients. I started talking to David about operations, because one thing I'm always looking at is operations flow, and somebody brought up labor, because labor in our industry has become a real hot button. So we really had to look at all of those components with the design. So if you look at the initial schematic to where we are right now, a lot of that took place because it met those criteria. Because when Dave and I talked about it, we would talk about specific areas and I always look at worst case scenario. When I start with a project internally is exactly where I started with Dave. I said, okay, we are getting delivery from our broadliner, whoever it is, Cisco, US Foods, whoever's delivering the food. I want it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I know they're showing up at noontime when that a la carte kitchen in the summertime is producing lunches for people. So how are we handling that situation? Where is our staging area? Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, one thing I'd like to say is the design presented in that is based on an assumption that we made in response to the RFP as part of our presentation. So therefore, there was no input from the owner group into the design of the kitchen. So everything from where Rob's talking about takes place after that presentation piece was put together.
That's the time.
Okay, so that's the thing you got to understand. This was all just a conceptual assumption at this stage. Okay, and because the kitchen was not part of the Harkins their scope of services, we didn't have anything to do with budget at that particular point.
Right,
Okay, so that's an input thing.
And I think that might have been what Jack was getting at. You were under the assumption that they were involved. Savoy Brown was involved with this before the referendum, which they weren't.
They were.
They had some.
They
No, they had some
absolutely
involvement,
were.
but they were. But part of the contract was hiring them. That was part of the referendum.
Cut to the
was hiring
chase. Who gave us the 159.4 number?
We did, Marty. How many times?
Let's make sure we're well. Come on.
What do you mean, come on? Do you want the answer?
You did it?
If you want the answer, I'll answer it.
Okay.
If not,
Where did the
Fine.
159.4 come from?
well, to answer your question, as we have several times, when we initially looked at the project, we went back to look at the equipment, talked with Public Works team, because they have the history on most of the equipment. Butch in particular knows, how much work he's had to put into that equipment. We talked with them. Initially, we weren't working with you guys. We were working with Becker Morgan, okay, just preliminarily. So we went through a lot of that process and came up with estimates. And that's why that document says conceptual. We did not, now understand, like we said, when we...
Go ahead. There's nothing conceptual about the 4.3.
I'm sorry, if you
includes
read the
everything.
bottom of the document, right in your hand, not that one that you marked up, the one that's the...
I saw that.
The bottom
With a
says-
magnifying glass, I
the bottom-
did it. It's got nothing to do with
The bottom says conceptual for a reason.
What has that got to do with 4.3 is all inclusive, including the new kitchen, based on the 159 with no disclaimer cost sheet.
Okay, let me put some other numbers up. We start 159, right? That's the right number?
Yep.
159 is a
Mr.
large.
Clark's got them.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm asking the source here.
I got them from you, Bob. That's why they're not very reliable.
All right, now that's enough of it. Come on, Marty.
Marty, that isn't it.
That's uncalled for.
Like a little gasoline on the fire
Yeah,
there.
that's
I'm
just-
so sorry.
That's you add round figures $200,000 equipment we can't read. Okay, and the ventilation how much is the new ventilation number?
80,925.
87.
Approximately,
And these are,
for the new hood system.
yeah, I'm just trying to, because we were reusing at least one of the old hoods, right?
Our intent was to reuse the hood system because it's not that, wasn't that old.
We were going to reuse the hood and possibly a couple of the fans.
Okay. These are round figure numbers. I'm 159 and change, 287, round figures is 450,000.
You have to add one other piece of that.
Okay.
The company, AC Beverage, is going to be the draft beer system. They'll be working directly with the club. And they have been talking to Bob directly on that. And the reason I brought them in to do that was because you had an established relationship with them already, and they understood the system. And that way, if we bring an independent company in, they're basically going to rip everything out and start fresh. And AC, as they've had dialogue with Bob, if there are components of that system that they can reuse, they will reuse those components in the new system.
Let's go back. A was 159.4. We have round figures, 200,000 of unreusable equipment. And because that equipment can't be, we got an $87,000 bill, right? My math adds that up to 448,000.
Okay, let's take one other piece into consideration.
Okay.
What was the date on that budget?
That was the starting point.
Okay, I'm just asking you, what is the date of
July of 12.
July of 12?
Right.
Add another 7% price increase that we had last year.
Where,
January 1.
and where are we now? What's the number?
477,504 for equipment, plus a dishwasher, plus now this AC delivery system. And the hood is actually 80,925.
So it's 88.
80,081.
81,000.
Yeah.
Okay. It's four.
What's your number, Tom?
It's all right here. We just got
I'm just working off the numbers I'm hearing today.
Yeah, right. What's your number?
442.4. That's starting with the 159.4, adding 200, adding 81. If my math is correct without using the calculator. I believe it's that's 4. No, I just changed it.
price, the 7% price increase is like 11,000. Does the rate apply the bottom line?
I'm still coming up at 440,400 now, and the number is what? 47. What is the number? New number for the quote? I'll look for it.
I don't have the hoods in my number.
Okay, well then
And we're still in quite frankly, I'm still in negotiations with the dealer. And based on a recommendation from here, I was going to try to see, after I give you some additional information, to shortlist two and go back to a best
I'm
and
just
final
trying to
price.
figure out what's
what's the
delta
number?
between
What's the
B
nut?
and
I gave the breakdown
Yeah.
last week.
I just don't have it in front of me.
I don't have it.
550 was a round number.
550
That's for the kitchen and the Ansel hoods.
and then
The numbers are 477,504.8 kitchen equipment, and hoods and Ansel 80,925.90.
Where you're at 470, you take the hoods out.
okay, so you're
And that includes sales tax. You add 6% sales tax on top of it already? That's a big number.
we're looking at 110.
It is. It's a huge number.
No,
That's a huge number.
It is.
Is it?
So we're looking at
Don't know.
110.
Did we have the sales tax? Bob, do we know?
Yeah, we
Really?
put
Oh, okay.
the numbers we get, we did with the numbers I get.
Well, if 550 is the working number pages over. We're looking at $110,000 redesign changes. Is that a fair?
I think you're right. It's probably right in the part there where you're going to
Help me understand.
That's because the original design was reusing.
Well, that we got the 200 and talking about the other.
I honestly couldn't answer the question. I mean, we do an itemized breakdown of every piece of equipment. So when we do an itemized breakdown, it's based on current costs by manufacturers. The program I use internally is updated by every manufacturer daily.
So we have so the explanation
There's no explanation.
well, we're within no, there is an explanation. Is the original estimate 159.4, I'm assuming included some equipment that obviously isn't usable, but redesigned kitchen equipment that wasn't expected to have to.
The initial design that we did,
Yeah.
we probably were using 70% of the equipment. Realistically, 70% of the equipment.
It's a lot.
And if you would, I have that design in my CAD program in my office.
That's fine.
And I also have the individual breakdown budget numbers were based off of that, which shows existing reuse and new equipment.
Have contingency figures they have. I mean, you have the sheet.
Had it.
That's the sheet that I think was really clear to understand. The phone system was another
Yeah,
increase,
yeah.
you know, so all those items that weren't all in there.
Marty?
It's a big kind of leap.
Well, wouldn't be
Now, would anybody be interested to hear about my bid analysis that I did? To know where we're coming down?
Yeah,
This is actually, I think this is very important.
Okay.
Because this is going to save you guys. When Jerry handed me the bid package about 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, we walked into a meeting, we're all together, handed me a pile of papers that day. Daddy, he goes, I can't make heads or tails out of this thing. I do bid analysis on a regular basis. So I said, let me go back, let me take a look at each one of the bids. I said, but I want you to understand this is not just a matter of laying it into an Excel spreadsheet. I've got to go on a line-by-line basis. I also need to look at the overall package that they're presenting to. So I'm going to start with one I eliminated immediately. Cisco Food Service, who I personally used to have a great relationship with Langford Cisco. We were their design firm for many years. I was Cisco Corporate's design firm for many years. They basically abolished their equipment division, but they have a division called Supply on the Fly. They had offered to bid the project. When I called them, got them on their phone, this was out of their South Carolina office, and I looked at their numbers, I said, something looks a little odd to me. So I got the person who bid the job, and I said, tell me, what does this bid consist of? I don't see a delivery charge. I don't see an installation charge. I need to get an understanding of this. And they had also non-bid a couple items because they're really not capable. They said to me, well, this bid is based on drop shipping equipment to the job site. I said, so let me get an understanding. You're going to load up 2 or 3 tractor trailers full of equipment. You're going to drive it up to Ocean Pines. You're going to back it into that construction site. And you're going to say to us, unload these tractor trailers full of equipment and move everything into the building ourselves. They went, absolutely. I said, you've now voided yourself out of this project. You won't be allowed to bid it because I can't put the club in this position. And as I've said to everybody we've been dealing with, my position is to protect the board through this entire process. My bid analysis is based on that. We had another bid that came in from a company, CES. They're out.
We're not real
Okay.
clear on the name.
Well,
Just
again,
leave it
okay.
alone.
But anyway, they're out of Florida. When their bid number came up, they gave me a coronary. Their bid number was probably $75,000 higher than the other four numbers that I had. So I immediately, without even spending 5 minutes of time on it, I looked at it, I just pulled it out of the bid. It wasn't even worth to spend time on it. So then I got back into the four companies that were left. I told them when we had our conversation, the initial company that, when I looked at the bid, was this company, FEI. Local out of Baltimore. I happen to know the owner pretty well. Worked for a friend of mine. And looking at numbers, their bid was actually much lower than everybody else's. When I really started going through on a line-by-line basis, I found out they left pieces of equipment off the bid. They had bid the wrong items. There was a whole section that for some reason they left an entire section off the bid. So I called up the owner, got him on the phone. I said, look, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I want you to, I gave him the specs and the equipment. I said, I'm going to give you 2 days. I want you to get these numbers, get it back. Once he gave me those numbers and I put them into my spreadsheet, it brought their number from the bottom to the top of the list. So in my mind, that eliminated them. Then we had another company, a local company here who bid it, whose bid number actually looked very good. But when I looked at the equipment, they made a lot of substitutions on the equipment. And I give latitude in a bid. I'll give 3 manufacturers to allow them to bid because I know every dealer, they may belong to different buying groups, they have different people they buy from, and it's to the yacht club's advantage for me to give them that latitude. But when I looked at it, Kevin would have gone crazy on me because it tremendously affected the mechanical side. Because I'm not only looking at the equipment, but we need to look at the mechanical side. And, as I say to my clients, there's a ton of old R12 refrigeration on the market. You can buy it every day of the week. But a pound of R12 Freon is $500 a pound, and a pound of 404, 502, or 134 is $2.50 a pound. I go, that's a tremendous difference because every year you're recharging a refrigerator. I said, more importantly is when a panel is installed into the building, an electrical panel, by code, you can only use 80% of the load of a panel. So if it's a 400 amp panel, I can only use 80%. Well, those units, some of the equipment they were speccing had much higher amperage draws, which meant now they're going to have to add either an additional panel, which is a major expense, or we're going to have to be adding sub-panels. So when I looked at it, even though I liked their number, and it was a favorable number, the residual cost was a negative residual cost to the club overall. So in my mind, I took them out of it, which brought me down to 2 firms. And I'll specifically name who these 2 firms are.
We didn't do that yet.
Okay.
Those are two.
All right, I don't have to do it. So it brought it down to 2 firms. Both of their numbers are very close to each other. Both of these companies are major companies, major players in the industry. If I was building a restaurant, I would trust either of these companies to do it. They will stage the equipment. You'll have an excellent installation. I've worked with both of these companies. As far as the back end, the closing of the job, which is always our headache on every job, is closing the job. I know that they're excellent at closing jobs out, and that ensures that the target date that we have for the opening of the club, that we're going to hit that target date on the button. Because I've already gone back, and we had this discussion privately. I said, we have to look at our target date. We need to start working backwards. That's going to tell me when we need to order equipment. I can't worry about, what it is. I have to worry about delays. What's going to happen in the project? So that brought us down to where we are. So what my recommendation would be to the board would be this. I would like to go back to both of these firms and get a best and final offer from both of these firms. I'm not going to do it without everybody's blessing it. But if we get that best and final, then within a few days, I will have a best and final bid, and then we can make a logical business decision at who was the right company. Because both of them are, in my mind, on a level playing field. It's just, to me now, it's dollars and cents. It's getting you down closer to that budget number that you're looking to hit. And this is a standard negotiation that I do. I was mentioning I'm working in St. Louis on a major project. And when I tell you major, I'm talking about almost $6 million worth of equipment. When I went to a best and final with dealers that I have up there, I was able to trim almost $850,000 out of the final number that the owners were paying for the project. Because I went back. Now, this is not that size of a project, but it's still a significant number.
The numbers that we have received, this would be worst case scenarios, what you're basically saying.
That's
That,
correct.
Absolutely.
that Rob might be
Low-
able to shade us a
the
little
low
better.
two- low- We looked at the lowest two bidders, number-wise,
Yeah.
without finalizing anything. And we took the higher of the two lowest. So you have a number, realistic, worst case. Now, we're hoping Rob can negotiate a little better. Don't know that. We're not to that point. The board's got to make a decision, take that next step. Bill?
In the referendum, and the board before that was very wise to put that in there, they said get a professional kitchen design there, an expert. We have that expert. Thank you for your
Thank you very
presentation. Very informative. These guys have been involved. These guys have been involved. The implementation team has been involved. The elephant in the room is money. We have one opportunity to get this thing right. And it's going to last us until all of us in this room are dead and gone. Because we look at what we did. You're going to be around in 50 and 40 years? I don't think so.
That young man over there probably.
Okay, well, maybe. He's not on the sheet, so I'm
Yeah, but he's going to be trying to collect Social Security and never going to get it.
We have to do it once. You do it once, you do it right, you maintain it, and then you have it. Look at over 40 years, or we want to take depreciation or whatever, figures or whatever. What are we looking at a year here, or even per resident? Pennies per resident per year over 40 years that we're trying to cut a couple dollars out of here? We have all the professionals in place. They've done their homework. We didn't just throw this together. AWB didn't throw it together. Harkins didn't throw it together and say, this is what we need. We have our professional. They've done their work. They've done their homework for what we told them that we need. Let's get on. Let's get on with it.
Here's the problem. You're speaking like it's your money. Here's what we promised. Do I read it again? We promised the membership, whose money it is, that it was all-inclusive at $4.3 million. That was our promise. And if that promise was based on bad information, we better start getting to the bottom of it now. There's still a lot to go. This building's not under roof yet. We're 550% over on hoods and Ansel. We're 300% over on kitchen equipment. We're 700% over on gas tank move. You know, we can just keep saying yes, 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 and yeah, it'll get done. And I keep hearing about, well, we really have this deadline we got to meet. I'm sorry, guys. Last May, the deadline was 45 days from today. The building's supposed to be open for New Year's. So let's stop kidding ourselves with building's going to be open, we've got to meet a deadline, and price increases of 7% that may or may not happen.
Excuse me.
I would make a comment. First of all, Bill, I appreciate your comments. I think you're right. That we have a good team on staff here. They've done their homework. We can't ask for any more than what's been done. We have a professional team all around here. I'm not an expert in this. I do know construction and residential. I've done that for many years. I would never put an old refrigerator in a new house. I just wouldn't do it. You guys have done the homework, and I think that we need, we have a restaurant done. We need to have a kitchen that's qualified to do work done. So, and Marty, I understand your numbers, that they're
My
over.
numbers?
No, I understand
The
you're
numbers.
concerned about the
The
numbers.
numbers. The
Okay,
numbers.
I think if we had known these numbers prior, it would be easier. Had we gone to the community and say, okay, the bid is going to be 4.6 and not 4.3, I don't think it made one darn bit difference to the community. The community would have voted because they voted for a new yacht club. And I don't think it makes a difference.
Can I make a suggestion?
4.8 is
And-
what we are.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say that, and it's up to the board, really. Should we have a summary of this conversation, at least in terms of the cost, the final cost, whatever that final is, on our new website, so general membership can see what evolved,
All the
what's
inf-
going on.
Just your information, all the information that has been provided to us, my knowledge, is put on the website. It's all available. This is on there.
Not on the update of the,
Yes, it
of the
is.
yacht club.
Yeah, it
is.
there
Yes, it
are
is.
no numbers there.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
That's
well,
right.
then it wasn't the last time I checked.
no,
Let me put that.
they're there. The first thing I checked was to make sure all the documents we got were on there. All right.
This is a business question, really an important question. I want to ask, could we do this with one kitchen?
No.
I'm sorry, I was asking.
I will tell you this. It's very, in theory, you could, but you're going to need to expand the space of that kitchen by probably about 50%. You're going to need to eat into the base. But I will tell you, operationally, they become a nightmare when you do it that way, because you're dealing with two separate operations, and I'm not talking about on the day-to-day operation, the a la carte side. But if you happen to have a function, you got a wedding getting ready to happen, you deal with prep. Prep starts 7 o'clock in the morning. You got people running around because they're prepping appetizers, they're prepping salads, they're prepping the center of the plate, all the vegetables, you're getting your desserts ready. So you've got all that because the way the food is prepped, everything is prepped in advance. We have very specific codes called HACCP, which we discussed. We have to, fortunately, David has done an excellent job. We actually have HACCP reports filed with the county, so we don't have to redo those. But it becomes an operational nightmare because now you're having these people working in the same space as these people, and now you come in for lunch, and you think you're going to get 20 minutes for lunch, and now you're sitting there for an hour. Because the mechanism in the kitchen that you need to produce that lunch is now being used for the banquet side.
Well, can we talk about percentage? In other words, if we went with one kitchen, no, I don't want that way. Of the total cost of the kitchen and the kitchen equipment, what percent of that total cost is represented for the second? In the bank?
What could you say?
What is?
I would probably say 40%.
Okay.
Now, let me just say one other thing. If you combine the kitchens, you're not going to reduce the amount of equipment. You're just cluttering up a space.
You're still going to need a couple extra ovens. I understand.
It's the same thing because if you look at the kitchen on the second floor,
Let's just take one piece of equipment as an example: dishwashing.
right,
You got different dishwashing equipment downstairs than you do
well,
upstairs.
you have different requirements.
Because you have downstairs, you have a restaurant where you have plates coming in throughout the day.
Yeah, they're
Going in and out.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
pots and pans and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Banquet, 200 people get done at the same time.
That's right.
Now you got 200 place settings that you have to
Well,
wash
and I'll even
at
take
one
it.
time.
I'll take it one
You
step
need a
further.
different piece
when
of
we
equipment
look
to
at,
do that.
When we look at warewashing, for one person, for one banquet, you have 14 pieces on average. 14 pieces. I'm talking about forks, knives, spoons, glassware, salad dish, center of the plate dish, dessert dish, coffee cup, coffee saucer, whatever. You have you cut up a cake. You have a wedding. You have a separate cake dishes. Take all that. So you need a dishwasher that you do much larger events can go simultaneously. When you're dealing with an a la carte, just what Kevin said, an a la carte restaurant uses a standard 24-inch door style, dishwasher. They're pushing it through, and it's hair drying.
Let me go back to, I think we've gotten the answer to the question. Go back to a professional team. David's a professional. Designers are professional. People who are working this are professionals. We had equipment that can't be reused. That was part of the original budget. There's a difference of about $100,000 in new equipment, design, whatever the specifications are. We could be 3 hours. But the A to B ends up being, you can build up from the 159 and get within about 100,000 where the number is now. I don't need our approval to go get best price. If you want the board to vote to go do that, we can make that motion. But I don't.
No, but what we'll need is before before Rob tries to do that final negotiation, as when you're negotiating, you need to be prepared to spend. I don't want to put him in a spot where he's negotiating and we have no intent of moving forward, but we should know what the board wants, the intent of the board is. We'll nail down the final contract, and that's what we use Rob to negotiate, get pricing.
You take a straw vote. I mean, you know what it's going to be. I mean, I'm going to be against it. 6 weeks.
No, all right. Any other information that we could be here for hours, folks. Bottom line is I have a better understanding. Timeline, how would that be? Every line item, last step, is a big step, okay, is a big step. But at the same time, you know, I don't want to re-argue, debate things that were debated 3 and 4 years ago.
Help me out. Where's your 100K come from?
I'm subtracting 440, 550, and getting 110, 100.
450. I mean, the
You
difference
said the
is
new number was 550.
558, 430 over. That's the cost of the kitchen, over and above what we put in the budget of 175.
You asked me where I was getting. That's where I was getting.
Well, that's a huge difference. It's not 100.
So it's 100.
It's not 100. It's 300 and something.
Well, then
He threw in the unusable equipment, replacement value of the unused equipment, assuming that expense was going to be made anyway. I mean, and there's nothing we can do about
This
it.
last page
If the
sums
ki-
it up pretty well.
Yeah, it does. It does. We clearly have a delta from where we started to where we are now. I think we have as good an explanation as we can get how that happened. I'm not looking to shoot it. So, maybe a week from now.
That's your money.
What do we need to do? In order for you guys to move forward, we will work. We'll meeting tomorrow. Or whatever the strategy needs to be. I really think. Any other questions?
Delay is always good.
Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of
You're right.
what's
It's
the
24
number.
hours.
And
You're
making sure we
right.
get it.
You're right.
Because I don't want to constantly be coming back and reassessing, and you know, to me, you got one shot at resetting this number and go from there. I don't want to just rush into this.
Okay. This is a report that you put together
This is just a follow-up.
for this meeting.
Well, this is a report that I put together for Bob. That's the email that I sent you down. It was basically a synopsis.
Is there a possibility we could get a?
This is,
Of course there is.
I know
Is there a possibility we could get a copy of this?
there would be, but here's the challenge. This is what Rob has given to me. It has not been widely distributed because there's negotiating points that he's working with on the contract. So you're going to have to tell me I would not put this out in public forum yet because of the fact Rob's still negotiating some of this. And this gives names of the bidders and some of the
Okay, I
different
understand.
things.
I mean, to
That-
me, it
I-
eliminates my leverage.
I understand.
So it was
I got that.
I will tell you one thing.
But it
In
was
my negotiations, as I said to them on our conversations last week, my interest is your interest. I work for you guys. I'm not working for anybody else. And at the end of the day, I'm going to get you best price that I can get, providing you with a kitchen that is going to function the way you expect it to function. And to give you the life cycle that you will, because the back end of it, after we finish getting equipment installed, I'm going to train David's staff, and I'm going to put everybody on a maintenance program to keep this equipment alive.
Are you an executive chef by any chance?
No.
No.
I've owned a restaurant.
Well, the reason I ask is you were referring to this document as you were explaining chronology or the
Well, no,
evolution
I was actually
as
doing
to
that.
how we got here. That's what I'm really looking for.
No, I was really doing that as a bullet point of dealers that I was talking
Okay,
to.
I got you. All right.
I really wasn't reading the
I
synopsis
hear
of
you.
what was there, because I actually had that in my brain.
So, Rob, what
Exactly.
you're saying is we maintain the equipment with the schedule.
And I'm already working with it.
Gotcha. Okay, I want to understand.
Yeah, because
And I assume these all have warranties of some sort.
Absolutely
and they're
do.
different according to the type of equipment.
absolutely they do. But to me, there are little things you do, like, and again, a refrigerator. You were talking about residential. And probably nobody in this room does it. Has anybody ever taken the grill off your refrigerator and vacuumed out the evaporator coil on the bottom of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Then more power to
Whoa,
you.
I'm impressed.
Most people don't do that. Well, commercial refrigeration is made to operate 75 to 85 degree ambient temperature. Think about the temperature in July down here. 100 degrees or 90 degrees with 100% humidity. If you don't allow that evaporator to breathe, it'll choke. So little things like that, because fortunately or unfortunately, I do a lot of work with Uncle Sam. And I've been in military bases that we do, that I watch them replace kitchens after 5 years, and it makes me sick. Because even though they have the money to spend, in my mind, I'm a taxpayer paying for those bills. And I know that it should live a 15 to 20 year life. And all you need to do, I got myself in trouble with the Army Corps of Engineers. Because I asked them one day, do you understand what the word maintenance is?
Yeah.
And they got upset with me. Because I said those words to them.
Okay,
So I put everybody on that program.
one last question.
Well, actually, it's two. Who prepared the list of equipment?
I did.
I've been asking for a copy of that. I understand it's a lot of pages, but I'd like a copy of that. There's no way you can.
I'll print 362 pages.
It's fine. If
You did get a list, just so we're all clear, you did get a list of equipment sharing validated last
Oh.
week.
on the plans,
Yes, so it wasn't
but that didn't tell me that we were buying a so-and-so walk-in box.
But he doesn't necessarily know that because some of these bids, they had 3 companies they were choosing.
But I'll be able to judge it. That was it.
That's it, okay.
Oh, no, there was one. Is there an advantage, in your professional opinion, leasing all the kitchen equipment versus not? That has nothing to do with what we're doing.
Honestly, you got to talk to your accountant. That's not something I can.
Well, based on your experience.
I mean, I tell you internally, the plotters that I buy in my company cost about $50,000 because we have digital scanning plotters. I would only lease it. I would never purchase it.
Well, we're leasing the dishwashing equipment. One. And, I belong to a yacht club that just built a whole new kitchen, and we reused the old. We ended up using new. We were $250,000 shy. Went to a leasing company. We write them a check every payments.
Either way, it's our,
Say it again?
so either way,
Yeah, it's
our
still.
money.
It's just. I'm wondering if there's any.
Any
For
advantage
instance, when
to
you
just-
lease a dishwasher,
Right.
you lease the soap is included, the service is included, right?
Absolutely. And the maintenance.
And the maintenance.
Well, I will tell you this, and we do leasing and we do buyouts. Leasing recently, since the banks and again, this is all based on the last 4 or 5 years
Right.
and the market. You know, the market is a changing market that we're living in today. And when you're dealing in leases, quite frankly, there's 3 ways you can lease. You can do fair market value, you could do a percentage buyout, or you can do a dollar buyout. Each one of them, if you sit down with an accountant, they're all going to tell you that there's advantages and disadvantages of all 3. You know, to me, when I lease a plotter, to me, I know that at the end of 5 years, now the one I have right now has a computer system, so I can constantly upgrade it, so I can keep it up with technology. I had an old HP unit that after about 6 years, one day they walked in, they go, "We're not supporting it anymore. Throw it in the garbage."
Yeah.
You know, you're throwing away $25,000.
And that is the
but-
biggest
Yeah, but kitchen equipment though doesn't change out technology and all
No,
that
it
stuff.
doesn't, and
Like-
it will
computers.
decrease.
Right.
Right, it's decreasing. It's not like you're leasing a Mercedes. That, after 3 years, it's going to basically be holding somewhat similar value, maybe 15% decrease in value on that.
Here's the
Is it worthwhile even investigating?
feeling they already looked at it. That the issue, if the grill we're buying to put in that kitchen isn't going to last more than 3 or 4 years, so that if you lease it 4 years from now, you're still paying somebody every month for something that could have had it paid off, and it lasts 5, 10 years. It becomes a matter of scale. It becomes a matter of, when you lease a car, I buy cars. I don't lease cars because every single finance person I ever talked to said they love leasing you cars because guess what? You're going to make car payments for the rest of your life. You never own the vehicle. You never own the equipment. You're constantly paying for it every single year. You never get a discount. But let's get an answer as whether we looked at the leasing or not. Fair enough.
The way it worked is after 5 years we get a buck.
Well,
It's basically a short-term loan.
It's a loan.
Capped at
It's what it is.
4.5%.
well,
Well, I don't know about 8%.
I think it's capped at 4.5%.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
let's move on to committee equipment. No hands up?
One. I have one.
Wait a minute.
Well, I was just,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to find out, will we be able to get some kind of documentation on this thing that went over the updates, even if it's not to the level of detail that the board received?
I don't understand your question, She.
The updated estimates, so that,
Yeah, that's, if you have the,
That was from the last meeting.
So you're still working
Should
on
should be
that?
on the website.
We're just working off.
The term drop dead completion date a number of times. What is the drop dead completion date? When is this structure to be completed, ready, completed inspection, everything ready? What is the date to be open for business?
We're targeting between March and April right now, Joe. What's that?
it's a gotcha.
It's a gotcha
No,
going
it's-
on, yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I'm giving a 60-day window, and I don't think that's Joe's intent, but March and April, but we've got, right now, and what Rob was talking about with going back, figure out, you start here and then you start backing up, see when you need to order. We're trying to get the kitchen equipment, jump in if I'm off on this, kitchen equipment in early March into the facility, because then everything's got to be tied down. They've got to have a plumber, an electrician, tie it all together, and then from there, everything gets functional. Rob comes in, does his check, and so the month of March into early April, we're going through that, looking to get our use occupancy permit stamped on.
All your furniture, all your chairs, everything that Ocean Pines is going to be putting in that club has to be in place and inspected if we can get a CO. Because the inspector will come through with his tape measure and make sure all your egress is correct.
You're the contractor, right?
Yes.
What's your anticipated date for certificate of occupancy? I realize it's something.
It's going to be the first part of April, so they get all their equipment in, get all their furniture in, and we get all the inspections that are required.
So April 1, give or take, if everything goes the way you
No, I think it's later than that. I have to back look at the
Later than
schedule.
April.
It's later than April 1, yeah.
So maybe April 15.
Somewhere around there. I have to go look at the schedule. We have a schedule down
That's assuming we have no other issues.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. We'll be bringing the inspectors up the whole time. We're bringing equipment in, bringing furniture in to make sure they're okay with it, instead of waiting till the last minute. Do it all the
Don't
time.
some of these big walk-in boxes get finished closing
Yes,
inside?
first things that go in are walk-in boxes and exhaust hoods.
And the floor is an issue with walk-ins, how you put the equipment in, the weight of the equipment. We've been talking about all that, so you don't damage the
Beefing
floor.
up and beefing it up, right?
Right. So all those go into the timing issue.
I mean, it's just I normally crane that stuff up in.
May I ask Bob a question?
Sure, we haven't adjourned yet.
Okay. Bob, is there a possibility that we may be going through this same conversation and scenario when we start talking about the furniture?
No, there's always a possibility. Don't put me in that box. But no, we've actually gone back and relooked at all the numbers. The kitchen equipment's the biggest because that's the biggest single nut.
So that we're reusing all that furniture, correct?
Our intent right now, we have budgeted numbers. Forgive me, it's not in front of me, but about 39,000, if I'm not mistaken, in our sheet for new furniture. We are going to reuse the chairs. We're going to redo the seating on the chairs. We've taken them all apart already. They'll all go upstairs for the banquets. We have the round tops. We need to replace or add some round top tables and replace some. Figure that out. That's not a whole lot. And we figured new seating and tables, 4 tops on the first. So we've already calculated those. We're going to be working with Kevin over the coming weeks to actually lay it all out in the structure, do the samples so you can see where everything's setting and then recount to make sure we're close on that. But we believe we are.
You had 39.
Okay, thank you. I think that last thing I gave you, we said 37. Yeah, and again, we're trying to tighten that up best.
Take a motion for adjournment.
Can I show you one more thing?
Sure.
We're going to go over the
Not a bad thing. What?
Yeah, we're going to show them the
Yeah, you all wanted to see the pictures of
First of all, let me thank you.
Yes.
Thank you much.
Oh, well, thank you for having us. Glad we could help. Absolutely.
I'm going to show this tomorrow just for GM updates. And that's why I told my reporter, believe it or not, I started early. But we can slide back.
You started early?
I know. But you all had asked for an update on the yacht club to include colors for this meeting. Working with Kevin and Don, we've talked about those, and I hope these come in. I'm going to show you Kevin's, and if you remember, Dan, I'm sorry he's not here, actually was the one really pushing to get kind of a visual with the colors of how the building, the interior is going to look. This is this area coming in the first floor down the hallway. Okay, the water's on this side of the building. This is the side with all the windows facing the water to give everyone. But this is what the view will be or the floor and everything, and that is the right here on the left. That's the darker floor colorings, and the tanner, which is behind that one, a little bit tanner on the floor tiles as opposed to the grayer look one.
So this is the tile.
This is the top floor. Now, I will tell you, on this screen, it looks darker than it does on my computer, but it's that tile.
It's that Chaco Canyon right there.
There you go. It's got the browner. When you lay them
it's
all
the one
down.
with, you see the one with the chestnut floor?
Yes.
That tile right there. Yeah, that's the tile.
It's got a little more brown, but you see this looks a little darker on here than that actually is. Okay, but that's the one picture of the first one. From a reference point where we're standing, if you look out, this side of the building you're looking at.
Right.
Okay.
So we have chair railing, and we have bottom under the chair is what color are we looking on that side?
It's the top is called, the top color is called sailcloth, and the bottom color is called coastal fall.
Are those things up there?
They're
What's your
right.
shirt says?
I think it's that one.
It's
Oh, we're over on there and not
This
on this
set.
one?
no. That's right. It is. It's
That's
easy.
the board.
Yeah, these right here.
So that's the light and the dark of the chair railing.
And Sharon, when you look at it, it looks a little gray pixelation on
That
here.
looks gray, and
that-
that's
Yeah, it's a little right. Yeah,
the
it's
gray
just the
big screen.
yeah. Okay, that's what I was confused because there's a grayer one down there. Okay,
All right.
and then the pillars are out of what now?
Well, they're wood. What they are is they wrap them in the wood to bring out, and you'll see even more on the second floor. But the base is the light color. All the wrap, all the casing is the light color wood, and then when we get second floor, you're going to get a better view of it. But then it's wrapped with the dark wood to match the floor.
I don't understand you. I'm sorry.
When you get second floor,
Okay.
you'll see it better because
And
it's
then-
tiled down here. So you
yeah.
don't
And from
see
here,
it.
those 3 doors to the far, that goes into the vault.
Okay, so those the wood is all natural casing. You've got the casing here. It's just a clear.
No. It's there's a cut. It's more.
It's kind of like that. Yeah, that right
Gotcha.
there.
Okay, thank you.
And this is again. I put put them in order so you're rotating now. This is the water side. And this is pretty close to what the door design and everything. I don't know if it's
And those are all those sliding doors. You can open those up and have the
This way.
whole downstairs be open air.
What's the ceiling height on the first floor?
we're
10.
10.
Yeah, the top, the very top is 10 feet, and then the bulkheads are like
about 8 or 9, yeah.
8'9". Yeah.
And Kevin had put in the darker ceiling up here. They're upgrading from the acoustical tile here, but the darker, a lot of the restaurants, that was a design change. Now again, everything looks a little bit, I gotta tell you, on this big board that on my computer, if you look at the actual colors, it is a little darker up here. Just
The ceiling is for acoustic help absorb sound. 'Cause
Exactly.
we've got all that hard work.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing I wanted to say about sound is, if you recall, in the old yacht club, you had the bar and the restaurant all open, so the noise from the bar is all right there.
Right.
The bar is in a separate room, and so all that noise from the bar, can be you could close the doors. The idea is that you can have the slider open so you can just walk through, but it would really allow the restaurant to be a lot quieter.
So those doors are all sliders. They're not French.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that way there's a couple there's a couple of them that are French.
There's a couple of them that are French because they have to be.
Those
have to
two
be
look
small.
like they're French.
Yeah,
on
they're
the
French
left,
doors
and
there.
then
Those slide.
the three on the right are sliders, so that
Yeah.
means just the slides.
And then the ones on the far right are double sliders. They open up to be a
Oh,
nice
that's
8 open.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Screens?
No.
No screens.
all right. Second, so they were the 3, just so you see what you're looking at. Good idea there. Go to the second floor. Coming down the hall, we're looking at the water straight out. What you're looking at here, you're coming in, come up the atrium, we're walking in, looking down into the main dining area. The water's to that side. Hostess station, as you come between these 2 columns down the hallway is where you have the 2 restrooms. If you go through the men's room, which is the first one, you can get into the groom suite. Again, this was on the floor layout, but just so everybody sees it. And then if you go further down, you can go all the way down the hall and hang left, go to the end, and you have the bride suite. Both accessible through the restrooms, and the men's, the groom suite is actually accessible from
The
back
hall.
this way down the
Right.
hall as
You
well,
can go through the groom suite to get the bridal suite.
if she unlocks. Okay. This gives you, we just came down the hall, that's the hostess station we were just looking at. This gives you an idea of the main dining area. Again, it's darker here because of the colors. You see the colors kind of a greenish tint. It's actually the beige,
Right, it's
more in the
beige.
brown
Third one
earth
down.
It's carpet, right?
Yeah. But
That
you can
one-
see the ceiling vaults up, and then there's the cupola in the center. All of that is you'll be experience all of that as you.
What's this hardwood? You were talking about hardwood.
That whole floor is
Right
hard
here, the
wood.
floor is wood.
So where's-
Second floor is all wood. The whole,
That's hard.
yes.
So you've got it stained dark.
Yes. Couple things with the dark wood, which is recommended, and one of the things that we brought back, the darker colors don't show heel scuff, mark up the floors a whole lot. The lighter colors, especially with this much flooring, very difficult to keep the black marks off the bottoms of shoes. Talking with Kevin, talking with David, both recommend the darker colors. You can jump in.
Yeah, dude, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
When you draw this the next time, this one and the one that I got from the other day, I think, shows 4 tops and the second floor. I don't think there'd be a 4 top up there. Will there?
The reason it was shown on the second floor is maximum capacity. 4 tops, you get more capacity in. Our intent banquet is 8 tops and 10 tops, like we have the second.
Are we going to draw it that way?
Yeah, that's
Well,
what.
we do-
And that's part of the
Oh,
reason
with the
we do.
new design. When you see the flow, yes. That's how we'll count. That's how make sure we count to make sure
We
it
have a
works.
chandelier.
And we have the tables.
And we have the tables.
Yeah.
We're okay. The big 8 and 10 tops, I think we're okay. I think we count we're going to be 4 short or something, but they're not terribly expensive. And downstairs, it's our intent. The 4 tops we have, take the covers off because the bases are fine. Order all new tops, and then all you need is a few more bases and tops. It's the chairs that we're buying most of, and the bars. They're the areas we need to. coming, again, we're rotating around the room, so you're standing, looking back in that direction. Kitchen, going in and out of the kitchen area. These double doors, this whole wall, and it goes L that way, actually,
It goes back the other way, too.
that's what I
yeah.
say, L straight back that way, actually is storage area. Right now, we don't have storage, if you know, we're storing outside for a lot of our equipment. This actually, these open, and that's where we roll out big top tables and stuff. So when we transition for banquets and events, we have plenty of room to store everything right there on the floor that it's
Right.
on.
And the other thing you could do is if you want, you have that larger storage area downstairs, where you'll be storing all kinds of things. If you need to move some stuff, you can roll straight into the elevator, freight elevator, and go straight out and out that way. So they can move equipment around the building pretty readily.
And do you have the acoustical tile up there too? Is that one a different darker color?
No.
No, that's they're putting a gypsum wallboard right on the underside of the truss.
Okay.
So it's a harder, yeah.
And that, are they painted darker, or is that just the
The
architectural?
ceiling is actually white. That way you get a nice, because we're going to have it modeled like all the little recessed lights in there. But there'll be a lot of recessed lights and stuff in there. We
Nice.
want to get the,
So they'll be soft.
right, it'll be soft light.
Color's off a little.
And then when you print it, it's even
Where's
different.
the elevator coming up in?
The elevator
For the public.
down the
It's
hallway,
down
right down the
the
hallway, comes up in the center of the,
Yeah.
And there's a stairway.
on both
On
sides.
both
So,
sides, yeah. You got
now there's
staircase
another
there.
elevator in the kitchen, service elevator.
Sure.
I think that was it. That was the last picture. So, I mean, you guys had asked about this, because we need to make some decisions on colors, everything as well.
As someone who really loved the old dock, would you go back and put all those chaotic hill pillars back in the middle of the room, break it all up, so we can't see anything? That was a joke.
I see lots of walls
Sorry.
from my
Now,
memorabilia.
go back to that.
I see my Chucky Tavern signs going up here
I can
somewhere.
see the head back out. There he was, pillars back there. Just kidding. Motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
You
thank
did a
you.
great job.